afternoon, everyone. I know this is the last moment just before lunch, so please bear with me. And that's a very important and very interesting talk that I would be focusing on today. And with all the leaders present here, all the different kind of practitioners out there, we all aspire for one thing, and that's transformation. Transformation with respect to businesses, transformation with respect to our people, transformation with respect to our processes, and that is where we all are trying to solve a very important problem, that how do we enable that transformation in our organizations. And to do that, I'll be focusing on two important concepts today, the literacy and the dexterity. When we talk about literacy piece, we all have nearly solved it. We all are aware of data, that we have to become data-driven. We have to be more efficient in our data communications. But what we need to do further is to become more hands-on with that. Probably that's the need of the hour. Probably that is where we have to focus, that all of us come together inside an organization and become more hands-on. What should be the mindset? What should be the approach? What should be the solution stack is what is the focus of my today's conversation with all of you. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll be trying to connect the dots that we have been listening since today morning, which has been presented by really intellectual people out there. And I would like to go back to the human race evolution, where we started in a very distributed thinking kind of a manner. We invented wheels, we invented printing press, we invented internet, just with the pure mindset of information sharing, just with the pure mindset of sharing with each other, with having a lot of democratizations, a lot of inputs being shared from one place to another. But what happened after that? As we got into a lot of digitized mode, we went into a lot of data generation stage, and as the data got generated more and more, we became more siloed. We started storing data in a very siloed manner. And that is where a lot of non-technical guys, and by that mean people outside of the data science group, became very much dependent. They were not able to create that impact for the organization which they should have. And there was a lot more dependency that got created with respect to the data science teams. That was the transformation that led us to on the negative side. So are we ready? Are we really heading the right way? That's an important question that we need to answer. To get that right, here are a few things that we are trying, or we are aspiring to traverse. We have to first get into the democratization kind of a mindset. If we are there, probably we are one step ahead to have the literacy being built up around our people, around the processes, around the culture that we talk about. Once we have the literacy piece being solved, we move towards the centric part, where we become more data-driven, where we are more dependent on the central processes that we have defined. And then we talk about the inclusiveness. Then we talk about the dexterity, that once you have laid down all these parameters in place to talk about the dexterity, people becoming hands-on and not just depending on a few set of individuals. And there is an analogy that I would like to share with all of you with respect to that. We all have seen the social media penetration that has happened a lot. And the prime reason for that penetration was a very simple tool called as mobile phones. The mobile phones was a very pervasive tool which helped us to adopt social media at such a mass level. So that is the approach that will help us to traverse that path. We need to focus on solutions, on tools that are pervasive in nature. If we have that, probably we are going the right way. Before that, there is a lot of readiness that has already been talked about, a lot of experts here with respect to the talks earlier. We need to be prepared, and it has been solved. You need to have a lot of buy-ins at a lot of layers and levels with respect to your budgets, infrastructure, data, skills, the kind of contextuality that you're trying to bring in. So this has already been solved, but this is an essential piece before you move on to the solutions part. So how do we do it? By getting more prepared on different fronts is what is our first step. But to have that step, there is a very important approach, and that was being talked about on the client front as well. But I'm going to talk about this approach from the internal organization point of view. How do we solve that? What should be our mindset? And that is where the outside-in approach comes into consideration, where we talk about the what part first with respect to learning and adoptions. It's not with respect to the client solutions that we are trying to pose, but with respect to the internal organizational employees who wants to adopt the data practices and the data culture piece. It has to start from the outside in. You understand the what part, how you are going to solve the problem will come later on. The other way around, which is the inside-out approach, is where we are currently focusing on. That is the piece that we need to get it right. What, why, how. That will help us to understand that the problem which we are trying to solve, why it is important, what is the nature of the problem, and then how it needs to be solved. If that is the context that is being given to a lot of people in the organization, that is where we'll see the difference. That brings more relevance, that is averse to technological changing landscape, where we are focusing on problem solving and not learning tools as such. And that brings in a lot of democratizations. That means people are accessing a lot more information around them and not just being dependent on the central teams. Now, with our experience, with our solutioning approaches, where we have been following this practice, we have tried to create a solution stack that may work. This is the hypothesis that we have derived onto. With respect to the solutions that you want to approach in your organizations, where you want to bring in more data dexterity, where you want your people to become more hands-on, there has to be a layered approach. A user layer, which helps you to access those kind of solutions and tools, that has been solved. The algorithmic layer, you have so many sophisticated algorithms these days, so many sophisticated data science tools that are already there. We have already solved the tech and the infrastructure layer. We are already talking so much about governance globally. But what is the missing piece? The missing piece within the technology is the contextuality. The contextuality with which you solve the problem, the contextuality with which you ask your people to adopt the solutions, the contextuality with which you are asking your people to learn something. For every person, the same solution may differ. The learning approach may differ. One solution does not fit for all. That is where you need to be more domain-centric, you need to be more business-centric, you need to be more centric to the problem-solving skills. We have to define the context. And honestly, that is being taken care by a lot of organization in manual days. But how do we solve it with technology is the question that we need to crack, is the question that we need to crack. Once we define the context, it would be the next stage that we find the context. We have the data in front of us that technology assesses and makes us understand what is the context of this problem, what exactly you're trying to solve, what should be your approach. If we can focus and crack the contextuality layer of the data science learning and adoption, trust me, we'll have a better data culture in our organizations. Because contextuality lowers down or brings down the learning barriers, the adoption barriers for the organizations, and that is where a lot of masses will spend time on. This is where we have been trying to solve through technology. All of you should focus on that technology piece instead of manual interventions, and if that can be done by us, I think it will lead to better data culture, better data-driven policies, better people contributing to a lot of better decision-making. Thank you very much.